Me distrae mucho el relámpago. Okay, let's go. Let's do this thing. Let's do dun 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 dun.
¿Todo este tiempo le está grabando? ¿Está grabando? vos?
Dun, 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 dun,
Está haciendo trampa.
Sí. This is bad boy. From Buenos Aires, Argentina, I'm Paige Nichols, and this is Bad Information, a love letter to the country and the men that drive us mad, and women and other people, all folks. This is a special episode because we have a very, very special guest with us today, a repeat guest. So good we had to have her back, and she waited 3 years for the call. She just sat by the phone or at the locutorio,
Sí.
checking her CBER every day, getting all that credito, and just saying, will they invite me back? And here we are.
Here we are.
Yay!
Hola.
Mi amiga, mi íntima amiga personal, Victoria Viola.
Hola, hola.
She is an only child. She is a Scorpio, but she's also a gifted communicator and podcast host and co-host and multimedia maven. She's got Comadre and La Crisis del Amor, so highly recommend, especially if you are hispanohablante. Welcome, Vicky.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm so glad you're here. Even though it's raining on us right now, but no one has to know.
It's raining, and I'm a bit nervous, so I'm going to break the ice by saying that because
Okay.
it's not my native language.
Yeah, but you did a good job last time. You taught us about the laminado, so.
Yeah, ay, Dios mío. You remember that?
Would you like to remind the new listeners what the laminado is?
No, you go. You go. I cannot say that again.
Let's just say that it's something you never want to experience, and it involves bodily fluids that aren't saliva, and it's sticky on your tummy.
Ay, por favor.
The ghost in the room just put a face of absolute disgust.
But he knows.
He knows. No te hagas la santa, Marcos. We know. Still waters run deep, and they run slutty too. So just FYI, you heard it here first. We're also recovering. It's winter. Everyone's sick.
I think it's COVID 2023.
I mean, I, tocar madera, have vengo zafando. I did get a flu booster shot when I was home in DC at Christmas. So I'm hoping that, and a COVID booster. But I feel like I'm esquivando those germs. Like my life depends on it.
Keep going.
I'm
because
trying.
It's really, really terrible.
I feel like if I survived, I was in this like very sketchy basement party downtown. Misa, great party, love it.
I want to go there. You have to take me.
Oh yes, it's really fun. But it was in a kind of scary basement last time, and it was so hot, and there were so many people, and I was like, if I don't get sick from this,
Sí.
like my immune system is really doing her job.
When was that?
That was the long weekend of Flag Day weekend. But
Okay.
they do one every month.
So you're fine because it's already been
Yeah, I'm
a
good.
while.
Like,
Muy bien.
Again,
Lucky you.
Tocar Madera.
Muy bien.
Tocar Madera. And also I'm touching the spring again. This is hard for me. I am not meant to be in a studio with moving parts. But anyway, Vicky, we are here today to talk about a very light topic, light and fun, keeping
Sí.
it
Always simple. You
Just-
always call me for the simple subjects.
just keeping it like super superficial. We're just like here chilling. We're having a great time. We're talking about feminism in Argentina.
Oh my God. Sí.
I mean, if anyone
We
can
love
talk
it.
about it, it's you. You're like my North Star.
No, I love you. Thank you. I'm deconstructing myself every day.
And that's why I think it's like this is your perfect person to talk to about this, because exactly, it's like no one's pretending to be an expert, but it's also like the commitment to the deconstruction and to exploring different voices and being intersectional and being an active member of this living community and thinking how can you what can you learn and what can you also give back.
Sí. I think feminism is all about that, like being active in trying to make the world better, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everyone should be a feminist. I still don't get this, like, I mean, we can talk about it. I'm sure we'll get there eventually. But like, the people, and especially other women who will be like, I'm soy femenina, no feminista
Ay,
or
Dios.
something.
Igualitarismo.
It's
It
like
dries my pussy. We're supposed to be
you,
shy.
you heard it here first. But same, because like, what the hell, man? Like, come on. I mean, and I want you to explasharte on that, and eventually when we do get there in 2 seconds. But like thinking about what it means, especially in this day and age. Because of course, we can do a little, as usual. I have a little history lesson just to put everything in context.
I like that.
It's good to have some facts, even if they're like the facts about Uruguay that we're all apparently wrong. Who knows? This podcast is called Bad Information for a reason. I would like everyone to just remember that. But looking back on where this movement began, and again in the backdrop of Argentina, it's not the same as the United States. That's where I'm from. But I was thinking about this the other day of how, like, yo me formé acá. I mean, I came here so
Claro.
young enough. Young enough as an adult that, in terms of really putting together my belief system and my values and finding my community, all of that really happened here.
Sí.
So while I grew up in a progressive and open, liberal place when I was young in the United States, and through my teens, when I in my adulthood in Argentina is where I really found this, and I feel like it's not casual, right? Like, it's not just chance that I connected so deeply with Argentine culture and with this movement, because I feel like it does, with all of its matices, and of course everything is, it's not a monolith, but just being able to find my space there, and then my voice, I feel like speaks volumes, of what it means to be a feminist in Argentina. And I feel like it's such an intertwined part of who I am now, just being politically minded and active, and all that stuff that I think that maybe in other places, I don't know, maybe it's just something that's so intrinsic to Argentine culture, this taking to the streets, this collective action.
I was gonna ask you that. Are people usually that loud, or is I feel like Argentinians take the street very often, and I feel our feminist movement, which there are many of them actually, but the feminist movement, if we could talk about one thing, really goes out to the street. And for the people that doesn't know, I work with a lot of foreigners, and I've taken some of them to some march because they were in Buenos Aires when we were marching, and they were like really surprised. And it was people from Europe, from South Africa, from the States, and I've never been to a march in another country, so
Yeah.
I don't know how to compare.
I mean, now, the way that the world is now, with just, climate change and political unrest and rights being taken away, we're seeing more, political manifestation, or people taking to the streets. The US in particular isn't a place known for that kind of culture. Everything is, it's like, if you're going to protest, you're up on the sidewalk and you're not interfering with traffic, and it's all sort of above board, and you've been approved, and you have your signs, they all follow the same less so now, especially during 2020, when the Black Lives Matter movement really caught a lot of momentum, and people all over the country were starting to come together. So that was really cool to see, but it's not something that's sort of in our DNA. Like, I mean, whereas maybe in France, it's more common, right? But I think that's what's so cool, when myself included, and friends I know from the United States who've come here, or whether to stay for a little bit or to live, it's like, it's just the culture of protest. And I don't know if that's part of it's being, a young democracy, and I think in the US there's sort of this thing of like, estamos cómodos, and it's sort of like you expect everything to just kind of work out. And there is a bit less passion there in terms of like the defending of your space.
Could be, or maybe like the Puritans you come from, and we come from the Latins, like Latin roots. We come from, I don't know, Sicilia, Italy, Spain, which are way more like open. So when you check our roots, they're pretty different.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm a full pilgrim. Like, I'm full pilgrim. I mean, can you tell? But it's like, you don't want to step on anyone's toes, or like, God forbid, you have fun. But I think, and that's what's so beautiful, is like seeing, I mean, my experience, I've been here for 15 years, and watching the birth of this current wave of the women's movement. And we can, I want to talk about like Ni Una Menos, and obviously 8M, and all these things. It's like, there's always I don't want to say an excuse, but there's always a reason to like get out and hit the streets and march and come together and dialogue. And I think that's like so important to a movement, because otherwise it dies. Like, you have to keep breathing like new life and putting new blood into it. And of course there's going to be dissidence among, within the group. It's like, it's an umbrella, but it's not a monolith. So, I mean, how would you describe feminism in Argentina to someone who's not from here?
Oof, that's a hard question. How would I describe it? I believe feminism in Argentina can be like a passion, like a football team. I feel a bit like that. Like it's a place where I belong that gives me purpose in many senses and organizes my ideas. So I think it's like a guideline on how to live
Yeah.
in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And in other ways, everything's so new and we are all the time deconstructing. So it's an opportunity to rethink ourselves. And I believe Argentina lives it like that all the time because feminists are getting together. We have an encounter per year. Unfortunately, I think for the last year or two last years, there's been two encounters, which is
Oh,
really sad. Like,
sort of two side, like, yeah.
yes, some people believe like Aborigines and people that used to live here before the Spanish and Italian should be inside the movement,
Mm-hmm.
plurinacional. And then there are other people that don't want to pay attention to that. And then you have trans feminism, and then you have rat femmes. So that ended up in two women's encounters. One was, I think, in San Luis, and the other one was in another part of the country, which was really sad. But on the other hand, I believe what's very interesting from the movement itself, in Argentina at least, is it already got to our kitchens, to our bedrooms. So it's already out there, like
Yeah.
Harry said in Harry Matsai.
We have a Potterhead. Ironically, she who shall not be named, Hotaka, but yeah, famously turf-tastic.
Sí, sí, sí.
But it's true. I mean, I agree. It's out there, and it's at the point where even if it's not getting, even if are these factions, even if there's backlash. I mean, we're seeing. I think it's very common around the world when there's a big movement of people expanding their rights, the backlash, it's sort of this backlash is
Of
always strong. I
course.
mean, it's almost like I feel like now more than 10, 15 years ago, I feel like this sort of openness to be, vocal and sort of anti-feminist is almost like more accepted because it's like we have to, it's like it's the
Sí.
pendulum is swinging the other way, right?
And it's not, I totally agree with that. And it's not random that this happened right after we got abortion legalized.
Exactly.
Like, you know, I was telling you off air that I went to the march on June the 3rd. And when I got to the Congress, there was little people. I thought the march was on the Pink House and I
Yeah.
got confused. And no, it was there. And we were with my friend. We walked around for a bit. There were some people on the stage talking. But I remember before 2018, you couldn't get to the Congress. It
Oh, yeah.
was like, I remember
It was crazy. You climbed up
I climbed the las rejas. How do you say
like the fence.
the fences from the Congress? And I stood there with a sign, and I have a picture that is, and I had to kill 10 feminism, 10 feminists. No, I'm joking. 10 rat femmes to get there. And now I could walk and check, and I bought some stickers, and I believe it has to do with this.
Yeah, it's like it's now. It's
Pendulo.
like, I think we talked about this too with Barbara on Padam on the queer episode because with same sex marriage once it was legalized, there were a lot of people who were like, okay, well, we did it, we got our rights, so we don't need to go out and take to the streets anymore. We don't need to be marching. And it's like, no, you keep going. You have to defend your rights every single day.
And there's so many things to talk about, not just white feminism and us wanting to get to CEO positions.
Exactly. I mean, there's just because it's not our perspective doesn't I think that's something that's happening a lot in the US as well is the centering among like the privileged white feminism,
Mm-hmm.
like girl bossing, and it's like, okay, but that you're leaving out like the majority of the other voices there, and you cannot control this conversation. You need to, if anything, use your platform to elevate the voices of other people who are less fortunate or who are more marginalized. And just because you can't relate to their experiences doesn't mean they're not valid or they don't, or that they still don't have rights. And so I mean, when I was at 8M on International Women's Day, and that was my experience too. It was it's summer, so it was warmer. And I think when the weather's good, people are
Sí.
whatever. They're more likely to get outside. But I was surprised at how open it was. I mean, it wasn't this packed experience.
No.
I mean, when we were doing the vigilias, like the vigils and everything for the abortion debate, I mean, all night in the plaza, and it was like standing room only. Like you could not, I mean, it was like being at a concert.
Sí.
And now it's a little, I mean, I don't want to think that, I don't think that it's over, so to speak. But because, like you said too, it's out there. But we need to cultivate and remind ourselves and everyone else around us that this is something that we need to, if anything, now more than ever, continue to defend and like you said, deconstruct.
Yeah. I feel like two things. On one side, I feel like there's a victory because we get to talk about this in our houses with our partners if we are married to a guy,
Mm-hmm.
and the discussion is open, of course, in progressist parts of
Right.
the society. But on the other hand, I think the same you do, that we shouldn't stop. Like, there's something that needs to be done in like higher levels of the feminism.
Yeah.
Like, we need to stop fighting for some stuff. Like, and I think the biggest problem is we are lacking a north now. The
Right, yeah,
abortion
'cause
was a north,
that
and
was
now
what
that's
it was like. Yeah, we were all united behind that because that was something that we could all
agree we need it.
agree on. We all knew we needed it for so many reasons. And also sort of the expanded program, of course, of like sex education, access to contraceptives. I mean, it's like things that are just so basic. And so you think, okay, we can all agree on this, and we're all going to put our differences aside to fight for this. But yeah, now that we've gotten that, what's next? And what do you think? Like, what do you think is?
Well, I have a lot of ideas. Like, for example, the ESI, Educación Sexual Integral, it's been approved, but it's not well implemented. Like,
No.
there's a lot of schools that still say, don't mess with my kids. I'm not going to teach this stuff. And it's so ignorant because the ESI doesn't speak about only girls can date girls and a boy can have a vagina. It talks about diversity in terms of color. Like, for example, something that happens in Argentina that it's terrible is that we refer to the light pink pencil like color piel,
Right.
like
Yeah.
skin color.
Yeah, we say that in English too.
Which is mental because there's so many skin colors as pencils. Well, not, we don't have Smarts and stuff, but you understand. And so I see, because my son goes to a very progressist school. That's progressive or
Progressive.
Progressive school. And I see how they speak about emotions and how they feel. They have like little like gatherings where they put into words their feelings.
Aw.
And when they talk about colors and they talk about skin colors, they have from the pink to the black, going through all the browns, the yellows. So, and that's all ESI for kids around 5. And then it starts building up. They talk about, for example, privacy
Right.
and the importance of taking care of your private parts, washing yourself. So when people say, ESI, no, they are missing out. They don't even read.
It's
what
reactionary. It's just, I mean, it's this thought of like, I know how to raise my child, or I can, and it's this fear of information. But I think it's so tragic because it's been, I think, I'm sure there have been studies done. I mean, I'm like, it's been proven, probably something I saw on TikTok, but it's real, that this also can prevent things, like, of course, like abuse. And when kids learn when they learn the right vocabulary to express what's happening to them or how they're feeling, I mean, it all lives in this ecosystem. It's not just talking about like, they think like the feminazi, people love to kind of come with that trope. And it's like, don't you want every human being just to be better informed about how to be a good human and knowing what consent means? And all of these things that, of course, I think if you're kind of already on that wavelength, it seems like, well, duh, yeah. But for people who are reluctant to support that for whatever reason, it's like it feels like they think that you're coming at them with like the devil or something.
The problem is, I think some people think rights are like a piece of cake. So if I get my piece, you're gonna run out of your piece, and it's not like that. If I have more rights, it's not you're gonna have less.
Yeah,
You're gonna
more
lose
for
some
everyone.
privilege. Privilege does work like a cake, though. And that's why I think there's a lot of resistance in those terms. But for example, to go back to your question, implementing the ESI as it should is one thing. Another thing is really implementing the abortion law as it should, because we are living in Buenos Aires. But when you leave Buenos Aires and you go to provinces up north like Tucumán, Salta, there's still it's still allowed to be un objetor de conciencia.
Oh, yeah.
How would you say that?
A conscientious objector, and that also exists at home, where you can say like, I am a doctor, but I do not perform this.
And I understand that, but if you go to a hospital where there's only one gynecologist on guard, like on the
call.
shift, on call, and he doesn't want to perform that, then you're screwed. And there's still a lot of problems to get the medication. And getting personal, last year I lost a pregnancy. It wasn't an intended abortion. I had a miscarriage. And when I arrived to the place, I went to a private hospital in San Isidro, and they asked me if the kid was from the same father. And they asked me a lot of questions that in that moment I was so cloudy that I didn't like give it a thought. But when everything ended, I was like, oh my God, they were asking me if I had another sex partner to check if I was
and also
having an abortion, which is legal.
Yeah, like it doesn't, who cares? I mean, it's like, first of all, who cares? But also, what the fuck?
So when they say, okay, abortion is already legalized, it is, but it's not perfectly implemented. So there's still things to fight for, even if they are legal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the US, I mean, I there's so many parallels in the sense of, it's one thing, of course, if you live in San Francisco or Washington, D.C., you think, okay, there's resources, there's access, you can, you're in a dense urban area, so there's more than one clinic or doctor's office. But if you're living in Mississippi, where it's deeply conservative and you're in rural, and it's to be able to find someone who will cumplir con la ley. Like, I mean, again, we're not doing something that's illegal. And it requires more money, and of course you have to have access to a car. There are so many privileges built into this that we, like, I would be taking for granted, or I wouldn't take for granted, but I would be dipping into if I were in that situation, and then remembering that there are plenty of other women and people who do not have that same privilege. And so now that, it's sort of like, okay, well, I know that I can go to my clínica privada and get this done, or I have my doctor, I make a phone call, I have, the dollars that they're going to charge me for whatever. But okay, cool, check, you're done. But like, there are millions of other women who are still vulnerable. So get over yourself and like fight for them, because they need you.
And I think that is our responsibility as privileged women, because now that I hear you speaking about Mississippi, it has nothing to do. But one of the things I remember seeing in this march in June the 3rd was like all these signs talking about chineo. Do you know anything about chineo? Chineo is like a practice up north in the country where girls are forced to be married to people, like almost in an exchange. And it's something that it's, of course, not legal, but does happen today in 2023. And because it usually happens not in Buenos Aires, basically, nobody gives a shit. And
oh my God, I had no idea.
That's a chineo. It's CHINEO. I'm good at spelling in English.
Yeah, she is.
Adios. And for example, that's a big problem that is intersectional, that it's not a problem that usually white women which live in Buenos Aires go through. And it's a discussion we need to have as a country of what's going on with our little girls that are getting married, I don't know, to people like guys, 50-year-old guys, when they are not even, they are younger than 18.
Yeah, they're full minors. It's like child
minors,
bride.
and they get pregnant. And because it's forget about abortion. Like they don't even get to do that.
Well, they don't even know like how their own body works. And that's what I think. I mean, that's why it's so important to, I mean, I always say we are a podcast federal, but it's true because, I mean, we're looking at the ombligo de Capital Federal, porteños. I mean, and I can only speak to my experience living in the city. But it's just that the constant reminder that just because you don't see it every day or that you don't know about it doesn't mean it's not happening. And that could be anything. And it's your job, I think, too, to seek that out, because you can't expect someone to come to you and be like, I'm going to sit and explain to you. Like, you're not going to expect you can't have some woman from Salta sit down and be like, let me tell you everything that's happening to us. Okay, you have the internet, you can read.
No,
like,
yeah.
You need to also, it's like, it is that kind of balance too of saying, I want to be educated and informed, help me, but also like, I'm not going to put more labor onto you because I'm already benefiting off of that, in other ways.
And that is what white people do, especially white
It's
men, but we as white women do too.
Oh, of course. I mean, hello, white women are the reason that like Trump got elected in 2016,
Mm.
basically. So there's a lot of women who also don't want to give up their privilege. I mean, it's so nuanced, and I think that's where it becomes. I think people are afraid to be open and honest about it because it's a slippery little slope of like you have to own up to your own shortcomings and own up to how you benefit from this system. Because even though we are women, we are still white women or white, presenting women who can ride on the coattails of this patriarchal society that lets us scrape by, or we can cling to, like, let's say if you have a husband and you can sort of, it's not like this binary path of,
No.
okay, I'm on this one and whatever. So I think that's why also it's just like it's it's so present, like this dialogue, but at the same time I think there are a lot of people who are afraid of saying the wrong thing or afraid of ruffling too many feathers, and it is also under the this movement of the pendulum swinging back, because I even seen people, people that I know who I consider to be, well educated and cultured and pretty, progressive, sharing like stupid memes or whatever on Instagram, but it's like, like basically being like, being politically correct is basically just means you're sacrificing your own beliefs to like make everyone else happy with you or whatever. I mean, kind of like, bardeando what it means. And it's
Sí.
like, okay, I think we're losing the plot a little bit. I think we need to like, let's just come back to center and let's remember like what this is really about. And to me, it's about like human rights and
Claro.
just like, which is me like así de simple, right? Like, it's like what a revolutionary concept. Like God for fucking bid, guys, like how, and it's like, but people are like, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of, it is disheartening. And I guess it also like the world is just like an exhausting place to be right now. And like,
It is.
it's like, I'm like, can we just like talk about how bad Che Diaz is on And Just Like That? Like, do we have to be talking about like really heavy stuff? But I kind of I started taking this all very seriously. Like probably around 2020, because when the world really started to change in that
Sí.
sense. And I think that like, we can like going back to like 2018 and the abortion debate here, I remember, crying over my computer watching the quorum.
I see.
And that was like such a uniting thing for us to be involved in. And like, I did a little like I would like to do more, like historical, actual like learning about, the women's movement in Argentina, like,
Sí.
from 100 years ago.
Because it's very interesting. We did a background on what we did.
What did we learn? Well,
yeah.
I have my notes here. I'm like, that was a perfect setup for myself. I'm just so good. High five to me. No, but what I think is, well, first of all, there's some really badass, like, almost like four mothers, like Juana Manso, Juana Manuela Gorriti, all these women who finally have their streets in Puerto Madero, like the most annoying neighborhood in Buenos Aires, but at least all this.
Azurduy, that is in Núñez, she was very good too.
Yeah, there's some amazing historical women too, but it's the feminism that we know of in Argentina came with this big wave of immigration from
Sí.
Europe in like the late 19th, early 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's sort of the inheritance, or sort of that we have. So that's sort
Sí.
of the root it comes from. And I thought it was interesting that they didn't actually have a unified movement right away. It wasn't just like, okay, we all want the same thing. Which is if anything proves our point that, feminism can't be put into one box.
No.
There's so many other issues that are connected to it.
There's so many feminism. Like you have feminismo maradoniano. I don't know. Like,
Shendo.
If you want.
that feels like contradictory.
It is. We can go there afterwards.
Oh, I love that. But like, they're the initial manifestations of this had like anarchist and socialist roots, which makes sense because like, let's burn that motherfucker down. But talking about like women's issues were a part of a larger like program of like revolution, which I think is like really cool.
Mm-hmm.
At the risk of sounding sort of like basic, but I think that's kind of amazing, and like really putting forth free thinking in these women who were not afraid to bring like big ideas to the table, especially in a time when women historically did not have access. So if anything, it's like just again sort of more remarkable. And it seemed like one of the main avenues at the beginning was like fighting for access to higher education.
Sí.
And then talking about equality with men. But at first, sort of maybe like la puerta de entrada was talking about like higher education. And then we had, the police are here for us because we're talking about women having rights. And I would like to just
Take me. I'm guilty.
This I didn't really know so much about, that La Voz de la Mujer, which was founded in 1896 by a group of anarchist women, and Virginia Bolten, love her. And that was the first feminist newspaper in Argentina. So this is like over 100 years ago, which is fucking amazing. And it was anarchist communist. So like really it's like anarchist communist feminist. Like what else can we just throw into the box to make all of our parents hate us? Like I love that. Like it's like, you don't get me, dad, I'm misunderstood soul. But for real. And it was their motto was no God, no master, no husband.
Adios. You can still use that nowadays.
I am gonna tattoo that like across my chest.
I love it.
I think that's amazing. I'm like getting excited just thinking about it. So like how cool. I mean that's amazing. I mean that's sort of, so I don't know if do you know any more about like sort of how that's anything else about that like first wave? Because I wanna, if anyone has any recommendations, please text me.
No. When I dropped the name of Juana Zurduy, it was because before we went on air, I was thinking about us being white chicks and investigating about the backgrounds of feminism. But when I did a little investigation myself for something on the 25th of May, that was our revolution, I discovered that there were a lot of very impressive women that fight.
Oh yeah,
for our independence.
And Afro-Argentine, black women, African women,
and that did some political moves and had an opinion, not maybe in the open, but with their husbands and spreading the word. And Juana Zurduy was one of them. So, but yes, to return to what you were saying, like the proper, like feminist movement starts around the time you mentioned. And what about other people? I don't know.
Well, what do you think about Evita's role? Because I think that from abroad, Evita is a feminist icon.
See,
right? Like, because I mean, well, women were granted suffrage in 1947, and that was sort of under her, like, around her time.
See,
but she was sort of critical of the feminists that came before her, and she didn't label herself as one.
The other day I was listening to Futurock, an interview they did to Dora Barranco, which is amazing, and I recommend you listening to her. She works at the CONICET, and they were talking about Evita not being in the feminist movement, but doing tons of things for the feminist movement, because
like accidental feminist.
Yeah, she was behind how do you pronounce that?
The scenes?
Suffragettes. Suffragettes. So, and it's interesting. I don't know why. We have to remember Evita was married to a military. And usually every time I try to judge something, I try to remember the context. That's something Dora Barranco also mentioned. And in that context, married to that person, I don't know how simple it was to, enunciate yourself. Enunciate? Yeah. Am I inventing a word there?
No, like to sort of assert yourself. Like to be, I mean, he was a flippin' military general. He was a very imposing authoritarian figure.
So, Dora was saying that she used to be a socialist, and lots of feminists were socialist/anarchist, and a lot of them discover in the Peronist movement like a representation. I have to say I'm not Peronista, I think but people maybe don't. Oh my God.
Escándalo.
But I think sometimes there's a lot of shit going around Evita being or not being a feminist. And I think what's important is she did very important things for the movement, not being in the movement.
Yeah.
But again, context is important.
It really is. And I mean, it's sort of, it's a good reminder, because I think we're so quick to, I mean, I know you're very quick to sort of judge someone with 23.
It's like a Coke commercial.
ASMR. But it's so easy now to be like, oh, well, to wag our fingers at something. It's like, it was 1945. So like, let's just, again, context is key. And I think that when with my job, with my tours that I take these women on, we do a whole sort of Evita, not necessarily Evita themed tour, but we talk about women in Argentina, and of course around the world. This is something that happens to us everywhere. women being told that we are hysterical and crazy because we want to fight for something that, we want to
I see.
correct an injustice. So you're talking about las madres, obviously, Evita, like basic things like, God forbid, the peones de campo have a place to sleep that
See,
isn't like outside in the,
exactly.
like, I mean, just so, that was the chair, not my butt, but you'll never know. But and I think that I can see why a lot of feminists maybe find themselves in peronismo, in the sense that it's sort of maybe the sort of the
See,
conjunction with like human rights and workers' rights and sort of things like that, and like equality. So I can see where that is like a common space, again, from an outsider's perspective, and kind of like reducing it to like a very simple take. Um, but it's, I don't know. It also is incredible to think about. I mean, from 1947, getting the right to vote, but maybe the role of women during the dictatorship, which is obviously like no es
see,
menor. I mean, again, thinking about the madres and the abuelas, and like
no.
how I think it's really incredible. I don't know if a lot of people who aren't from here know this, but because I wasn't really clued into this until after living here for a while, that it was really thanks to them, that because during the World Cup of 1978, with all of the international media that was covering the Mundial, these, women who every Thursday got together to ask where the hell their children were, um, got the attention of the media, because of course, Argentine state uh, media coverage was, obviously highly controlled by the
See,
by the
totally.
junta. So there was not, I mean, nothing was getting out at the local level, and so they were brave enough, and I don't know. I just think that it's sort of like an offshoot, but to remember that it's women who play such an important role in these historic moments, like whether it's during the revolution, getting liberated from Spain, and thinking of Maria Remedios del Valle, Juana Zurdue. I'm not saying her name correctly, but I just go
But
Azurdu.
and I
But
want to say something more. Do you know why they used to walk around the plaza? Because they got together and they were standing as a group, the mothers, and they weren't allowed to be standing. Like groups weren't allowed to be like,
like,
because it could be read as a manifestation. So they couldn't just be standing up there still. So they would tell them circulen, like walk.
keep
And that's
moving.
why they started walking in circles. So they went there in silence and walked to like just
Oh,
remind.
it gives me like goosebumps still to really think about. It's something that it's so, yeah.
And
It's
the green handkerchief that was so important during the abortion comes from the white handkerchief. And it was crazy because I took some friends, foreigners, that were here on this job I had, and I remember they bought their handkerchiefs and they took them back
yeah.
home. And now that in the States everything got dodgy regarding abortion and stuff, they
Mm-hmm.
send me pictures with the green one. I was like, yeah, it got up there,
It's incredible. No,
it's everywhere
to
now.
see, I mean, I've read, there's been coverage like on NPR and New York Times about how now now in the US, because of course the Supreme Court is coming for us and for our rights, um green is the color that they're using, and how it was inspired in Argentina. And so yeah, the panuelo verde, which I mean, I still have in my backpack. It's like
Mm-hmm.
ratty as hell, but like I'm not taking that thing off
Mm.
ever. And I think that that was so cool, because again, this legacy of what the panuelo, what the handkerchief means, because of course the madres de Plaza de Mayo with the white ones, which a lot of visitors to Argentina you'll see, or if you're familiar with it, you'll see it in sort of symbolism. But how that is something that becomes an icon that transcends, and how it became, I mean, I remember feeling this just like deep sense of community and kinship when I would see other people. It's like when you'd be on the street and you'd be walking to work or like going wherever, and you'd see someone with like a handkerchief, like a green one, on their bag, and you'd be like, okay, like it almost made you feel like safe, because you're like, okay, this is a person who is.
Exactly.
And
That's it.
it was really like, and then there were times where you'd be like, I don't know, maybe in a cab with some like creepy old taxista who was clearly like pro vida, whatever, blah blah blah. Who I prefer to say anti derechos, because
Anti-derecho, because
you aren't.
pro vida, we are pro vida.
We are pro life, thank you. They're anti-choice and anti-rights, and and sometimes being a bit like feeling like, I mean, a little, whoa, okay, they're gonna see this and they might like, I'm alone in a cab, it's 3 a.m. Like, what if they start just like hurling insults at me, or worse? I don't know. And I mean, I think that you'll see fewer panuelos verdes out now, but I thought it was kind of funny. We talked about this before we started recording, but how during like the peak of the abortion debate time, and of course the women's rights movement that really hit like a fever pitch around then too, was, downtown, you'd walk around and you'd see like the kioscos would sell like every kind of
Every
pañuelo.
color, see.
Because you've got the green for like abortion, purple is for gender violence, right? Ni una
Purple
menos.
is ni una menos.
Ni una menos. And like, so, and how did ni una menos and the, like, how does that fit into like the women's movement here? And
well, I think we read, and I did a little background check. Apparently, this comes from the ni una menos, like the motto. How would you call that? El dicho.
Yeah, like,
The
yeah,
slogan.
the
The
slogan.
slogan. It comes from Mexico because in Ciudad Juárez, women get killed pretty often. And here, some years afterwards, in 2015, Kiara was the girl that was found dead. She was pregnant. She was 14. And apparently she got killed by her partner. So a lot of women got together in a spontaneous way in the Congress. And I think that was like the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And they spoke about ni una menos, vivas nos queremos, like stop killing us, basically. And then there was a proper march on June the 3rd, that it's the one we're having every year now.
Right, because we have March 8th, which is International Women's Day, and then June 3rd, which is the new, like the
Ni una
sort
menos.
of the more Argentine-specific Ni una menos march. And so, I mean, gender violence and the femicidios is something that, growing up in the U.S., like we never heard the word like femicide or talking about. I mean, you would hear about domestic abuse and violence, but talking
or
about
passionate crime.
Yeah, crime of passion. What the? I mean, who was the PR person behind that? I would really like to know.
The patriarchy.
And I would like to cut off their balls. Thank you very much. But so there's there's a lot of legislation now on the books. And again, just because there's a law passed doesn't mean that it's being, it's perfect. But Argentina is a pretty progressive country in a lot of ways, right? So we have, of course, we have a law against like street harassment, the acoso callejero.
Sí.
A law like under the umbrella of gender violence, the femicidios, that was passed in 2012. The gender violence law, which was passed in 2009. And then I think abortion, it was signed into law in 2021. So I mean, that's like the most recent one.
And I know you did an LGBTQ plus episode, but our law in terms of trans identity is one of the best in the planet. I'm not being Argentina now.
It is amazing. Sí. Like, it's so impressive that the identity rights here is so, that the access to that is so sort of unquestioned. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't want to, obviously I haven't had, that's not been my experience, but to see sort of just like, you can just go and do that. And it's like, great.
Like in terms of how it's written, it's like very good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm proud of Argentina. Yay. I mean, we have a lot of work left to be done, but I think that these are important markers, because when you're living in a society that has such progressive legislation, eventually it's like, get with the program. So it's like, I think that I remember even like when we'd be at Congreso for the abortion debate, and it was like the green side and like the baby blue side, which again, I would like to say, let the record state, I think it is deeply manipulative of the Salvemos las dos vidas people to use the blue of the Argentine flag as like their color. Because first of all, like, get your own color, like be more creative, and also like, you aren't like a patriot. Like, I just want to say that.
Ay Dios, they were 10 anyway. We were dancing with a bonfire, and
we
they
had
were
like tits
10.
out, dancing, jubilant and angry, and there was like 5 gatos
and a huge feto ingeniero.
Oh my God, the bebé ingeniero. I remember, I mean, that was like, we were living in crazy times when like, and I lived downtown, lived near Recoleta, like Opus Dei, Catholic Central, and every fucking balcony had the giant like banner with the embryo.
Ay Dios.
Tengo 6 semanas, quiero nacer.
Quiero ser ingeniero.
Like, I'm 6 weeks. I would like to be born. And it's sort of like, buddy, if you're born right now, you're not going to make it. Because like, I have bad news for you.
Good luck there.
Like, te quiero ver. And honestly, like, it was just like, I mean, it took up like my entire.
Did I had a bad nightmare, or Viviana Canosa had an ultrasound on stage? Did that happen?
Oh my God.
No. I have to say, they are the cheesiest.
Oh,
Like I lost that part of the show and I was like, fuck, but I'd rather be here dancing than watching Susan and Viviana
yeah.
Canosa doing an
I mean, like,
ultrasound.
it's like I kind of loved like how cringe and how ridiculous, because it was like you guys are literally like the least cool. What was the one? Oh my god! Now we're gonna have to do like a compilation of like the interviews they were doing on the street.
Yeah.
But there was that one guy who was like talking about his mom who had like 25. He was like, I don't want to like say it wrong because it was very like memeable.
I know.
And it was just sort of like, these people are real. And I want to be respectful, but also like, sorry, if you don't respect me or my body or my rights, then like I can't respect you back. So like, I don't really feel that bad. But like, yeah, we were like, I mean, we were eating chori, bonfire, drums, half naked, screaming, crying, dancing, hugging, loving each other. And they were just like reading the Bible. Like, sorry. I think the choice is obvious, but pro-choice, I choose our side.
Sí. I would definitely go to my party.
I mean, it was the best party. But I think too, like, I mean, I love seeing, and I saw it this year, especially at the March 8th, at Women's Day March, is seeing like young girls like feeling safe. Like, I mean, it's like they're together and like their arms are linked and they're wearing their panuelos and they're wearing they painted their faces and they're very
Sí,
like, they're
the
kind
glitter.
of, they're decked out to protest and just be. And you can tell that they feel empowered and safe. And it's a space like, I wish that I had that when I was that age.
Sí.
Again, like growing up in DC, the capital of the United States, and being in like a liberal minded family and all this stuff, but not having that space, because I really get upset when people are like, dejemos de meter política en todo. I'm like, I'm sorry, existence is political. Like our life is political.
Everything's political.
Everything is political. And, especially as a women, like, I'm sorry, like there's no discussion. Like we are still fighting for our rights. So like, of course this is going to be such a big part of how I live my life. And I wish that I had that space to explore that even younger, just because I think that it would be so enriching to like connect with that and have a true sisterhood, and not in the sense that's like sisterhood of the traveling pants, but like really knowing what it means, like leaning on that space and learning and growing and challenging myself and deconstructing and being like opening my eyes to the world and not just staying in my little bubble. Of course, like it's nice to be young and innocent and maybe ignorant in that way, but how empowering and how cool to have these walls torn down. And then I just think it's like un camino de ida,
I think so. It changes everything. Like, I think about my motherhood, for example. I'm a feminist before I'm a mother. Like, I used to be a feminist when I became a mom, but I live my motherhood in a feminist way. So, and that it's so, it makes it it makes it lighter. Like, when I'm with another mother, I'm not thinking if she's doing it better than me, or of course there's always like the human urge to compare yourself, but I'm all the time thinking she's in a trinchera the same way I am in one. I don't know the English for trinchera.
You're all in the trenches. I mean, yeah, like you're all just trying to get by.
And it's so much nicer to raise your kids and to live your motherhood thinking we're all in our trenches and we're doing what we can, that then started saying, I sent him to Chinese and he does Aikido. He doesn't watch pantallas and TV. And it's like, and I can see that there's a connector between the women that are feminist and how they raise their children and how they live motherhood, and the women that are not in favor of feminism. I'm not gonna criticize them. We are waiting for them with open arms. But what I feel is it's so much lonelier,
It is. Well, I think the mommy wars, that's what we call them in at home, this like, and I can't imagine what it's like to be to sort of atravesar like that whole journey of raising a child in this world today and being a woman and being a mother. And just that competition and that comparison, and that it's again like we are, la que tienes al lado no es competencia, es compañera, and those phrases that may sound like a little trichados at this point, but
they're true.
But they're true, and I think we have to remind ourselves, because we are such victims of our own internalized misogyny. Like we have been raised to, and I think that a lot of people are still like afraid to, or they're just like not ready to really understand what that means, in the sense that like we are byproducts of this system. Like, and we've talked about this before, like men are victims of,
See?
internalized misogyny and the patriarchy. I mean, it sets up these gender roles and these stereotypes that they have to feel like they have to fulfill. And and men who are afraid to say they're feminist because they think it's going to it makes them look weak or bad.
See?
I mean, all these things, it's sort of just like you said, it must just be very lonely. And I think it must be very tiring because you're holding up something that does not represent you and that does not have your best interest at heart.
And I think that's all about being a feminist, like hacking all the time concepts you have. Like I did have before being a mom, for example. I thought like the WhatsApp group, like mommy's WhatsApp group, was a nightmare. And now I do have plenty of them, lots of them, I have to say, with parents, like fathers inside as well. And they save me every day. Like they pick up my kid if I can make it, or they buy more fabric if we have to do a flag. So I end up understanding there's a lot of myth and archetypes around being a mother, being a mother-in-law, which saves my ass a lot of times when I
The
want to go
suegra.
out for dinner. So I think being a feminist, regardless if you're a mom or you're not a mom, it's an invitation to hack all these ideas we have, especially of other women and
Totally.
diversities. Like, what was I told about being a mother, about being a mother-in-law, about being fat, about being queer? The feminist movement invites you to hack that ideas. you
Yeah, and
have.
it lets you explore that too on your own time because it's sort of like, again, there is no one right way to be or to live, and there's no one right journey. There's no one right way to have a family, to raise a child. And totally, when you start to just pull at that thread to unravel, and same, I mean, my own, I even think too, just of the when you're in, when you're married to a man and all those things that you just sort of buy into, or and then the work of trying to break that down and be like, I mean, it was very tiring
Sí.
for me to sort of be like, also there was a generational gap there too as well. So I think that also complicates things. I mean, I look at my friends who are women who are with men, and I see a little bit more. It gives me a little bit more hope. I'm gonna be honest though, not too much, because but
It
it's
depends on the man. Yeah, I was
of
gonna
course
tell
it
you that.
depends. Cada pareja es un mundo, right? But the idea of division of labor and understanding what that means of the unpaid domestic labor, and I was learning about this. I never heard it called this way. It's like the kin keeping, which is basically like all of the trabajo invisible that
La
women,
carga mental. How do you say that in
well, like
English?
the emotional
Load.
workload.
Sí.
And this woman, I of course, again, I watched the TikTok, sorry, but she was smart. So, but it was a perfect analogy, or metaphor. It was really great. She said, you buy tickets to a play and you go watch this play, and when it's over, you applaud and you clap for the actors, but there are dozens more people behind the scenes, people who had to, do the lighting, the sound, who wrote the script, the
The
director,
customs, yeah.
the
Wardrobe,
costumes,
yeah.
the people who had to do the marketing and the advertising for the play, so the people would actually buy tickets. People who, I mean, everything. But when you go and you're applauding, you think you're just applauding for the actors and the ones that you see, and it's like the women are the ones behind the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Behind the scenes, at the holiday times, the kitchen is typically always full with your aunts and your grandmothers and the sisters and everyone. And yes, there is community there, and yes, there is bonding, and yes, there is this kind of sisterhood and helping each other, which is really beautiful. And so I think that, it's not that that's a bad thing to have that space, but it's like the men are out with their butts on the couch, like they don't even know,
Ay,
they don't
Dios.
or men who don't know what size clothing their kids wear, they don't know what school they go to. I mean,
The doctors, yeah, no, they have an idea, no
they
idea
have
about
no
anything.
idea.
Yeah.
And so it's like, of course, I mean, giving up that privilege of actually having to show up and know what the hell's going on. I mean, that's a big thing that I can see why a lot of men don't want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, God forbid you do, I always the bar is in hell, it's like,
Sí.
it's like the bar is in hell. So it's like, Jesus Christ. But how, and so there's still so much work to be done, because I see that in even the most progressive households or families that I've observed in my limited life. But it's like I still see those
Of course.
those vestiges of just the division of it, the expectation, and it makes me mad. It makes me so mad, and I'm an angry feminist. I want to burn that shit down. I don't want to buy into that. I don't want to subscribe to that, and I'm happy with making people uncomfortable by talking about it. But I know that, like, you know, not everyone can or wants to do that because it's annoying.
No, but I think it's important you bring this up, and that's why I'm gonna meter un chivo ahora.
Ooh, hashtag Chivo.
In our podcast Comadre, where we talk about feminist motherhood, we are all the time saying motherhood is political. Why? Because we need changes to come from the society and the state itself. Like nowadays, something in which Argentina is really bad. I think the States is worse though, but Argentina is really bad.
The States is always worse. Spoiler alert.
It's like fatherhood.
Paternity leave.
Paternity leave.
Oh yeah, the U.S. doesn't even have maternity leave, so let's just
Claro,
start with that.
Okay. Por
Like
favor.
you give birth and you have to like go back to work the next day,
Or you have to take like you're ill,
you take like sick leave,
which is
and that's if you're lucky enough to have it. Because like
imagine all the things are beneath that concept of you taking sick leave because you had a kid. Okay, I'm not gonna get into that, but nowadays, currently, I think you're allowed to take 2 days off as paternity leave. So it is very, and I gave a talk at a company for the diversity day talking about motherhood, and there was this gay guy telling me, we want to adopt, me and my partner, we're 2 men, and we don't get 4 days between the 2 of us.
I mean,
who's gonna take care of the baby?
Like who, and also how are you going to bond with this new child? Like,
so that's the problem. Like men are not even given the chance, because
Right.
after the birth, if you have like an how do you call it, biological son
mhm.
or daughter, they go back to work after 2 days. They are back on the outside
Yeah.
world doing shit, and you're alone on your place. So
And like they're tasked with like, or I mean, typically being a provider, right? So they're like, it's
Exactly.
like now it's their job to like bring home the bacon for the family. So they can't focus on the emotional part.
So that's why I think sometimes that's why the feminist movement is so important, because when we take the streets and we fight for our rights, things become a law. And when they become a law, there are less excuses not to do your own shit. Like if we have a better paternity leave, what is going to be the excuse? You have to take it.
Exactly.
You know, if you take it, you bond. If you bond, you understand. If you understand, you start being there, because we have to do a mea culpa as mothers, that sometimes we don't give the space.
Yeah, well, because you think I know how to do it. I'm not gonna like. I'd rather do this because I know that I'm gonna do it right or my
Exactly.
way. And so you don't. I mean, it's, and even also in, not even in motherhood. I mean, I found myself doing that
With
sometimes
everything.
with the household stuff. It's like, well, I'd
With
rather
the
do it because I know how to do
household.
it right. Like I know how it's supposed to be clean. But also then you bring in like weaponized incompetence, and you wonder how many times is this man who has a postgraduate degree unable to wash a dish properly, and
Because
you think
you
it's
wash them for him all the night.
no. And also if they think if I don't do it right, she'll get sick of asking me and I'll
Exactly.
be off the hook. And that, I mean,
that is deconstructing yourself too. Like,
oh yeah.
I went through a period of knowing my husband was gonna, maybe it didn't happen actually because he has great taste, but maybe he was gonna put the wrong sweater with the sneakers, and it's like nobody's watching. You know, put him whatever you want.
Yeah, dress the kid however
Just
the hell you
take care-
want.
And that's empowering for him, which I hate the word, but and it was great for me. I don't want to have a stupid assistant. I want to have a partner.
Well, that's the thing.
So
Or they
that's
say, like,
part of the
tell-
deconstruction.
And they say like, well, tell me what to do. Make a list.
I
And
know,
it's
Dios.
like
Divorce.
figure it the
No.
fuck out. I mean, I like to. I'll air only a little bit of my dirty laundry, but I always thought it was quite funny. We got our new washing machine. Brand new. It was Lava Seca Ropa Samsung. Oh my God. It was La
Oh my
Gloria. I
God.
miss her every day. And I remember when we got her and my ex was like, I don't know how to use it or
Me
something.
neither.
And I was like, don't you have an MBA? Like you tell me all the time about like you have an MBA. Like it's
Read the manual.
it's literally not that hard. Like there is a manual and
Yeah.
it's like there's pictures and you figure it out. I mean, just sort of this like resistance. It's like what is the problem? And it is
losing privilege.
and
That's
it's just
the problem.
it is. I mean, I think wow, it must be nice. Like must be nice. I don't know what that's like because I mean because our whole lives, I mean, as from being little, at least in my case, I mean, you're socialized and you're raised to be a people pleaser and to accommodate everyone else and you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to make anyone upset. You step in, you do all of the chores and the things, even if, you think there's some kind of division of labor, ultimately it falls onto the women.
Sí.
And that's just a fact. It still is. And so while it's great to see, I mean, I know that I see partners and I see men and changing a little bit there, which is great, but it's still,
we have a long,
but like you
long
said,
way
like
to go.
it has to be systemic. It has to start at the top. So like you look at countries, everyone loves to talk about, like Sweden and whatever, but it's like mal visto. Like if the men, I guess they get like fathers get like 1 year paternity leave.
I think they have 1 year in total between the two of them, and they are compelled to take it.
No, it's like you have,
you
like,
have to.
you're
Compelled,
forced to take
that's
it.
how you say it? You're forced.
You're like obligated to take it. And it's like, and if you don't, in other countries in Scandinavia, whatever, it's like, but if you don't take it all, it's like mal visto. Like people are like, and it's like even among men, they'll be like, what the, like, bro, like what's your problem?
Sí.
And I mean, we're of course lejísimos de eso, but I do think that like, when we have better legislation and like you said, when there's fewer excuses and on all ends, right? So now we have the abortion law, great, but like, it's still not perfectly executed, but okay, but at least, but it's like now,
but we have it.
And so you can recurrir a eso and like,
and you cannot go to jail for having an abortion,
exactly,
which happened before.
No, and I mean, and thinking about, again, the women who, I think, I'm sure all of us in this room and maybe more listening, we all know at least one person who, when abortion was still not legal here, had means,
pay for it,
and they know, and they were, I mean, not saying it was any less traumatic of an experience.
No, but
you had
access.
Could
pay for it, yeah.
And I think, when we talking about just the intersectionality and talking about our privileges, remembering that, like, thinking of this gay couple that you spoke to who wanted to adopt a baby. So what, they can't take their own paternity leave, so they're going to hire a woman who's leaving her own
there's
children.
Always a woman,
and they're going to pay a woman who probably lives, 3 hours outside the city and has to take, 2 buses or whatever and 3 trains to get there. They're going to pay her probably fine, but not, not enough.
Sí.
And she's leaving her own family to take care of this new baby. And so the cycle repeats. And again, people don't, I think, want to really get into that nitty gritty because it's just painful because it's a painful existence.
Because facing your own privileges is painful because you feel guilty.
Yeah,
of course, and you have to. That's the
good. You should feel.
Yeah, it's the only thing you have to do when you have a privilege. Like feel guilty and try to do something about it,
and then do better.
Claro, I rather feel guilty and do something about it that don't have the privilege. Not being privileged. So
yeah. Or then just fingir demencia, because then you're just like, again, like, in this economy, I don't know. I just think that. I really get upset when I see women who are, or even like my age, or who aren't like 80-year-old like dinosaurs, and they're like, no me representa, like talking about the movement, no me representa, and it's like, again, you might not want to opt in to be on this, but we're also fighting for you. It's like, this is like, we're not like, you can't pick and choose. And I don't know like what you think about that. Like, I mean, it's because the grieta is everywhere today, not just in Argentina and not just, but here especially, we're seeing that. Like, I mean, you mentioned the dos encuentros, like that's it's sad. And it hurts me when hearing other women on that side. I'll take it from a man because he's dumb, fine, and he doesn't know what it's like. But like one of us, I don't know. It's like, I can't fathom that, and I can't really comprehend it. And it's like, sometimes I'm just like, like how will we ever figure this out?
I have some friends that think that way, that say very proudly they are not feminist. I used to get very angry at them, and then I started thinking with the context. And I understand what media they consume, what people they get together with. And I understand they cannot separate the movement, the ideas, and the heart of the thing from 10 girls in a cathedral, like throwing paint and showing their boobies. Like they think the feminist movement is that. That is. So I used to get angry at them, and now it's like, it's your loss. Yeah. I don't know if it's even more soberbio than before. Like, I used to get angry. It's like, you're losing the party,
Yeah, I mean,
I feel so much happier since I am a feminist. Like, I feel better with myself. So it's their loss if they don't want to go through that.
And I also think it's like so easy. Again, it all goes back to this privilege thing of, it's like, it's easy. I mean, what do you think any any significant change that gained rights for you or anyone else was like politely managed. Like, I mean, it's like things have to be burned down. Like, spoiler times 12. Like, we got to burn some stuff and you have to fight. And if you are lucky enough or privileged enough or whatever enough to let other people do that for you, it's kind of like con más razón.
And we have to, and let's be honest, like I've been to all the marches since 2015, except for a few because there was a pandemic or something happened to me, or I didn't have someone to take care of Floro, my son. I've never had a problem on a march. Never in my life. So there were what? 100 people lighting something like on fire? If you want to stay with that part of the story, which is what TN shows you, it's up to you. You're missing the whole thing. And, to be honest, it happens with everything.
Yeah.
Because it happens with the political grieta. It happens with everything. If people are not active in trying to gain information from different parts to have their own opinion, they're going to stick to one thing they are fed from that TV channel they keep on watching. They're missing on the big picture. I'm not saying I have the big picture. I'm all the time missing
we're trying,
stuff.
right?
But at least I try to. Okay, they were burning everything down. And what about the pictures I saw on Instagram of women walking with trolleys with kids
with their
and celebrating? Yeah. What about that? It's not in TN, so it's
no
not
one's
true.
Showing that.
So
of course, I mean they're serving their own narrative. But I mean, and I agree completely. I also just think that but in the idea too of like significant change, you have to. It has to be disruptive in the sense, okay, we don't have to like throw the balloons at the catedral with paint, fine. But in the sense of like, what do you think happened in the revolution? What do you think happened in?
No, I totally agree with you.
Exactly, right. So it's like it's funny how it's like some people are able to separate those two concepts, but and like you said, ultimately, it's like the same. It's like the sense of safety and community that I feel at those marches, like 8M and 3 de Junio, and it's like. It feels like you can kind of relax because I feel like we all go on the streets today and it's like you're kind of you're on edge and it's like it's a party, it's safe, it's like you're all here for the same thing and we might not, it's like there's all these little camps of like maybe they're the communists are over there, the one who we're talking about, the peronistas over there, or the whomever. I mean, it doesn't matter that we don't have to share 100% of our ideas and values and beliefs to be brought together by the most important of values and beliefs. And
who was it? I how do you pronounce it? Audre Lorde.
Mm-hmm.
That says being feminist is the radical idea that we need human rights. And then there was another. I don't know if I read it in Women, Race, and Class or where was that I read it, but from a black feminist that said they have to be thankful that we are looking for justice and not revenge. Because if you think about all the women that get killed daily just for just for having a vagina, not even to get started with I don't know the English way, transvesticidios and transfemicidios, not even to enter there because the numbers are even worse. Their life expectancy is of 35 years old.
When I tell people that, they're like, what? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. I would have been, I'm 38. I'm already done.
Yeah.
3 years. Already.
It's, I mean, the lack of awareness.
So if you're so worried about someone's throwing shit at a cathedral, that I understand is your belief and when we're getting killed, like what's the number now?
Well, I saw that so far this year, it's been from January to April 30th of 2023. 100 femicides been reported. So, and now we have the caso de Cecilia. I mean, like we have, that's the
and I remember I had this argument with a friend of mine that says very proudly he's against the feminist movement. And he was like, why do you need to call them femicides? And it's because if you don't put a name to it, you cannot understand it. It's men get killed too. Yeah, but it's not who dies, is who kills the people.
Mm-hmm.
Who's killing the men? Men.
Yeah.
So basically, So
well, if
I don't get involved in those discussions
because
anymore.
it's not worth it. It's not worth going the back and forth. And I've learned to like stop. I mean, I've sort of stopped seeing certain people or engaging with people when that comes up. To sort of it's sort of this playing this devil's advocate or being like like it's like, okay, get a hobby. I mean, because like I when I was doing research for this episode, looking, I mean, according to the UN, Latin America is home to 14 of the 25 countries with the highest rates of femicide in the world. So like that's a shitty statistic. Like that's not one to be proud of, you know? And
No.
like so this is like esto sí nos toca like, you know, muy de cerca.
Sí, we are in a macho culture for sure.
And then there's exactly like when you're looking at talking about context of just machismo and these gender roles, and of course the role of the church. I mean, there's so much more that like, you know, we could go into for hours, and I'm not even close to being an expert. So that's when I sort of think like let's defer to, first of all, like I have my growing stack of books of things that I need to read and podcasts to listen to and other voices to, you know, get informed by. It like grows every single day. But it's like this is an ongoing, this is like a living thing, right? You know, because again, what we thought of maybe women's rights in 1970 is not what it was like in 1990, now in 2023. So we're in constant evolution, and there's such a wealth of information out there. So it's like you said, join the party, you know, have fun in the sense of like find this group and find this global community and lean into it. And then also lean into it in the sense of like, you know, to learn and to open your own mind and to question your own beliefs. I think that just every single day, maybe it's because I was like estudiante de filosofía. Imagine me at Puan. Can we just talk about that? But re puanera. But to like this constant just questioning and constant searching and seeking and opening doors and not knowing what's behind them, but like being committed to working through it, you know? Like I just think that when you humble yourself a bit and you try to be more like empathetic to other people and like remember that the world does not revolve around you, it's like a pretty good.
I think it's a gentler way of living.
Yeah.
With myself and towards others, basically. Who wouldn't like to experience that?
Who wouldn't like to experience that? Come with us. Be gentle. We're feminists. We'll light you on fire, but then we'll be gentle. I don't know how, but we will be. but I think that's actually like a nice, it's like a interesting conclusion, because I'm talking about how fucking angry I am all the time, and and I think the imagery that a lot of people associate with feminism is this sort of, you know, like, you know, we've got something to say and we're throwing pain and we're topless and things are burning, but it ultimately is this like you almost just let go, and because when you let go and you really understand, you stop putting all that external pressure, and it is very freeing and very gentle.
It is.
Oh, wasn't that beautiful?
I see.
I feel like that was like a perfect little poner con bonito.
Bing.
Bing. Vicky, it was such a pleasure to have you, and I feel like I want you to just be my like, can you just like be in my pocket every day and just like teach me things?
Invite me, of course. I can return for whatever you want.
Yeah, we got sex, we got feminism. We'll talk about, we'll have like being pregnant in Argentina. You can talk about that.
Dios, sí.
Oh man,
whenever you want.
Like piercing babies' ears when they're 2 days old.
Ay Dios.
Shaving their heads. Why do they do it? Why do they do that? Well,
aesthetics, they drive you nuts. I didn't do it, and they were like, "Are you gonna keep having him with that hair?" And I was like, "Yeah."
You're like,
I am.
So sue me. So Vicky, people can listen to your podcasts Comadre and La Crisis del Amor. Is there anything else you would like to promote?
No, and follow me on social media.
She's cute, guys, and she's funny, and you're a wealth of resources.
Thank you.
You're like my little learning center. And if you aren't already, because I forgot to do this at the beginning, and I know Marcos is going to be mad at me, please follow, like, subscribe to Bad Information on every platform you can find us. That includes Spotify, Apple. I think we're still on Google Podcasts if that exists. LiveJournal, Fotolog, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. ¿Qué más hay?
Do you have TikTok?
Well, it's my TikTok.
Love it.
But we're getting there. We're trying. And also, please, if you want us to be on more platforms, please send us some love on cafecito.
Cafecito.
Because este amor no se hace solo, mi vida.
Esto que llaman amor es trabajo no remunerado.
Es trabajo no. Literally, I am the embodiment of unpaid labor. But yes, please support the little pod any way you'd like, because it means a lot. And if you don't, I will burn you down. So on that note, I'm not even wearing a bra. So I'm going to take my bra off and I'm going to burn it.
Vamos.
I'm going to go throw some paint on the cathedral. So suck on that. Vicky, do you want to join me?
Of course. I have no plans. It's raining, which usually happens during the march.
Yeah, exactly. So. There you go. Marcos, you're not invited. So don't even try. All right, everybody. Well, go fight for your rights unless you're a man. And if you're a man, just be quiet. Bye.
Ciao.
Love you. Bye.
This episode of Bad Information was recorded at Estudios Nieve in the charmingly chaotic neighborhood of Villa Crespo in Buenos Aires, Argentina.